It's a new program. It's the debut tonight of Newsnight. And here is your host, and congratulations, Aaron Brown.
Thank you. I'm moved by that, Larry. Thank you. Good evening again. We have much to report tonight, but as Larry suggested, we do have a very important announcement to make about this program. It's really big. I've actually been talking with newspaper reporters about it all afternoon. The program now, officially and forevermore, has a name. Really, it has a title. Now, naming a program, believe me, is not easy, and in fact, coming up with this name took many, many months. We started this process in August. The program's producer, David Borman, and I had a few of our ideas, and the executives who rule our lives had several of their own. That seemed to carry us to late August. Then these names, all of them, were researched and researched some more, because it's very important, we were told, that the audience, that would be you, liked the ideas also. That took us to September. The executives kicked it around a little more and settled on a name, and both David and I said, fine. So, from now on, the name of the program is Newsnight. The theory of the name, and believe me, names we learned need a theory, goes like this. It's the news at night. Thank goodness for all that research. With that in mind, here's the news this night. A man holding an expired student visa cleared a checkpoint at Chicago's O'Hare over the weekend, even after security found 2 knives on him. Only later were 7 other knives, a stun gun, and tear gas found. 2 more knives in his checked luggage. And it took a full day before the FBI arrested him. This should answer the question, are there holes in the airport security system? The response from the Transportation Secretary, when there are screw-ups, there's going to be a sting. That's a quote, warning that the carrier, United Airlines, may be fined. And the nation's top Democrat had one word, though he said it twice, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Clearly, the Democrats will use the incident against the White House and House Republicans who oppose making airline security workers federal employees. We'll deal with that story. We'll also look at New York politics after September 11th. It's Election Day here tomorrow. And we'll go on board a NATO plane doing something that would have been utterly unthinkable before September 11th, flying surveillance missions over U.S. soil. All of that on Newsnight. Note how we're working the title into almost every page, by the way. But first, the Newsnight whip around the world. We start with CNN's Susan Candiotti and the investigation into the security breach at O'Hare. Susan, the headline.
Aaron, 7 knives, a stun gun, a can that read tear gas, right through an airport x-ray machine, right past airport security. The Transportation Secretary calls it a failure of dramatic dimension. We call it something that raises all kinds of questions. Aaron?
Susan, thank you. To Afghanistan, CNN's Satinder Bindra in northern Afghanistan, the headline on the war.
Good evening to you, Aaron. No U.S. military strikes here in the past 2 days, but the latest strikes here was so heavy that Northern Alliance commanders intercepted radio messages that suggested the Taliban had suffered heavy casualties. Now some alliance commanders believe the Taliban's morale is down. So, Aaron, they're training and preparing for a ground offensive. Back to you.
And as we said, Election Day here and in a number of places around the country tomorrow. CNN's Candy Crowley. The headline, please.
Aaron, it is an off-year election that is more off than usual. 2 governorships and a big city mayor's office are among the seats up for grabs in elections in New Jersey, Virginia, and New York City. The question is, how much will September 11th influence November 6th? Aaron?
Candy, we'll get back to you and all of you shortly. We begin tonight with a story that gets more disturbing the more you look into it. Federal officials say there's no indication that the man at the center of the incident at O'Hare Airport is linked to terrorism. The man, who was on an expired student visa, got through a security checkpoint armed to the hilt. Subash Gurung says he's from Nepal. He had nearly a dozen knives, tear gas, a stun gun. When his arsenal was finally discovered at the gate, he was arrested, and then he was released by local authorities. His original court date, December 19th. It was not until last night that the FBI finally got around to arresting him, charging him with trying to board a plane with weapons. And then there's this. a mysterious connection with one of the two men being held in Texas after the September 11th attacks. The FBI says coincidence. Again, we're joined by CNN's Susan Candiotti. Comes to us tonight from Washington. Susan.
Hello, Aaron. He carried 7 knives with blades up to 4 inches long, plus a stun gun and a can labeled tear gas, all inside a plastic bag, the kind you get at the grocery store. But airport security did not see any of it. How could that happen, especially now?
Knives or
No, I just don't want to.
The arrest of a 27-year-old man from Nepal at Chicago's O'Hare Airport Saturday night reveals not only a disturbing security breach, it also raises questions about how the FBI handled the matter. The incident began when security guards hired by United Airlines confiscated 2 pocket knives from Subash Gurung at a screening checkpoint.
It just got in a hurry. I forgot all these things to do.
It wasn't until Gurung got to his gate that 2 United Airlines employees subjected Gurung to a second check and, according to police, made a frightening discovery. Inside his carry-on bag, 7 folding lock blade knives with 2 1/4 to 4-inch blades, a stun gun, and a container labeled tear gas. The items were packaged with a camera in a white plastic bag. 2 additional knives were later found in his checked luggage. Gurung told CNN affiliate WLS it was all an accident. He collects knives and the stun gun was for protection.
I told you that I was living there in Chicago and I don't have any friend at that time. 2 years I was completely alone there and totally insecure and lonely there.
On Sunday, the FBI told CNN it interviewed Gurung, but insisted local authorities were handling the entire matter. Chicago police charged Gurung with 2 misdemeanors, released him on bond, and ordered him to appear in court next month. After the story became public, the FBI rearrested Gurung Sunday night. He appeared in federal court Monday on charges of attempting to carry a weapon on an aircraft. The FBI said Gurung's story had been thoroughly checked out, and in a statement added, there is no allegation this incident involves any suspected terrorist activity. Hardly consolation to 8 now suspended airport security employees who failed to see the knives, stun gun, or tear gas. Those security guards work for Argenbright. That company denied their employees had violated company procedures or FAA guidelines, saying there's no rule requiring a search of carry-on luggage after finding knives during a body search. Argenbright has a history of run-ins with the Justice Department. The company is currently on probation after putting untrained people, some with criminal backgrounds, at security checkpoints. Transportation Secretary Norman Mineta called the O'Hare incident a failure of dramatic dimensions and says the federal government will likely impose a substantial fine against United Airlines.
we are going to hold the airlines and their screening companies accountable. The airlines cannot wash their hands of this duty, and there should be no doubt as to our determination and our resolve.
Mineta says United will be required to retrain its passenger screeners employed by Argenbright at O'Hare Airport. Secretary Mineta now says United Airlines, under FAA supervision, will now be forced to retrain its Argenbright passenger screeners. Argenbright put out a statement saying it is now revising its procedures. Its employees must do a hand search of carry-on bags if they find something like a pocket knife during a body search. Apparently that was not a must before now. Aaron?
Well, I'm sure that'll make everyone feel better. Here's my confusion. In the original statement, the company says that they were following policy, that essentially they did nothing wrong. Then why were they suspended if, in fact, they just followed the policy?
Well, that's a good question, Aaron, and one that we would like to ask Argenbright, but at the present time, our questions are going unanswered. They have decided instead to put out a statement, and that's all we have to work with right now.
And in the meantime, the man goes to court at some point now to explain all this.
Later on in the week, he has a preliminary hearing set for Thursday. If found guilty, he faces up to 10 years in prison and a fine of up to $250,000.
Susan, thank you. Susan Candiotti from Washington tonight. You know, it's a frightening incident when you ask the question, who dropped the ball, and the answer feels like, who didn't? Joining us now to talk about what went wrong, Diana Rushing, who's the president of the Flight Attendants Association for United at O'Hare. Among other things, she would like to see security be made a federal duty, though that has a number of different meetings. In any case, good evening to you.
Good evening, Aaron.
Thanks for joining us. All this talk about changes in airline security, is it just that, all talk?
Yes, it is. We have not seen the changes that need to be made. It's nice to have our National Guard at the airport, but it is window dressing. Really, there has not been changes made to make the airways safe.
What changes would you like to see here that aren't being done?
The Association of Flight Attendants has stated, and we still are advocating, that the first line of defense, the screening process, all of the people that are involved with the screening process need to be trained, retrained. They need to be federalized. Our Congress needs to act immediately to get whatever in place needs to be put into place. Obviously, we want to keep the bad guys off the airplane, and it needs to start at this screening point.
Honestly, I mean, you've gone through these checkpoints, thousands of times. Literally, I've gone through hundreds. It's an incredibly tedious job. I wonder if it matters in the end whether it's done by a federal employee or somebody else. It's no less tedious, it's no less boring sitting there doing that, and that strikes me as the kind of thing that causes this problem in the first place.
I really believe that if you have well-trained, well-paid personnel, emphasis on the importance of the process that they have to go through, I believe that we can have very well-trained people doing this.
Tell me what it's like for your membership to fly these days. Are they nervous when they get on the plane?
I believe that obviously air travel is still the safest mode of transportation, but our lives changed forever on September 11th. The flight attendants, yes, we are concerned. In the past, we were trained that when we had scenarios as transpired on the 11th, that it doesn't apply any longer. Our training doesn't apply, and our training must change. We used to be able to rely on our cockpit. Obviously, we cannot rely on our cockpit now. So now we're the last line of defense to the cockpit. So our lives have changed forever. And yes, we are nervous.
And do you notice a big difference in your passengers, too? Are they more wary when they're flying?
They're much more vigilant. It's interesting to watch our traveling public really pay attention during our safety demonstrations and really paying attention throughout the flight.
Thanks for your time tonight. I appreciate talking about security questions. Obviously, what happened over the weekend raises a lot more questions than we've been able to answer, but it's a start. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.